Just want to do God's will.
The kind of revolution that the world needs is a Christian revolution.
If you want a miracle, you've got to expect it to happen.
You are the recipients of God's grace and God's blessings, and you rejoice in that reality.
Hello and welcome to Life Today Live. My name is Jeremy Upchurch. I'm so excited and glad to be with you. I serve as the associate executive producer of the Daily Life Today program, but I'm always overjoyed whenever I get to come up here and meet some of the incredible guests that Randy gets to talk to every single day. And this is no exception. I am thrilled about this interview, and I think this is going to be a show that will not only inspire you, it will bless you, and it will give you the opportunity to maybe reframe some thoughts, because we are going to be talking about thoughts today and what those thoughts can do in terms of determining our lives, helping us achieve what God envisions for us and helping us grow closer to Him, accomplishing His will. And it's just going to be something that I think will benefit a lot of people. My guest today is a graduate of Johns Hopkins University. He is a certified doctor of functional medicine, a clinical nutritionist with a passion to help people use food, lifestyle, and mindset medicine to heal and prevent illness. He wants to help people understand that mindset can be transformative and all of the benefits that come with that. You have probably seen him on any number of shows, as well as his own show, the Dr. Josh Axe Show. He's got a brand new book called Think This, Not That, 12 Mind Shifts to break through limiting beliefs and become who you were born to be. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Josh Axe to Life Today Live. Dr. Axe, thank you so much for joining us.
Jeremy, it's an honor to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Like I said in the beginning, I think the book is going to bless and benefit a lot of people. I have a daughter that is frighteningly close to high school graduation, and we have a little chain in our kitchen where we're tearing off days, and it's like 18 chain links left. And it, for me, there were so many things that as a parent, you go, boy, anybody that's graduating high school, anybody that's long ago graduated high school needs to hear and pick up some of these principles, because there's so much good, so much practical. So like I said, the book I think is going to really bless and benefit a lot of people.
Well, thanks so much. The things I included in the book were the things that had the greatest impact on my life, the things that have helped me heal and overcome health issues, the things that have helped me experience success in career and relationships and even growing spiritually. And so, I think that the book hit the New York Times bestseller list. People just, rave reviews in terms of, hey, these are principles that are going to help transform lives. And I think one of the biggest reasons why is that it's full of biblical principles, and that's really where they come from. And so, yeah, it was exciting to write the book, and some of them maybe I can share at the end. I mean, I actually wrote this book at a time where the doctor told me, really, when I was writing the first chapter of the book, that I might die. I was diagnosed with a spinal infection, and was told that I might be permanently disabled. This was just a year and a half ago. And so I would love to get in that in the show a little bit as well. But, and that really even changed the way the book was written, the content there. And I think that's part of what makes it so impactful.
One of the things you say at the beginning of the book, and I wrote it down because I thought it was so good, is nothing can match the transformative impact of mindset medicine. What has led to you that being something that you're passionate about and wanting to share that message with people?
I think there's a couple things. One, I think it goes back to patients. When I took care of, I had a functional medicine clinic. I took care of tens of thousands of patients. And I would notice if very early on, if they were likely to heal or not heal and overcome their condition. And so much of it was a mental game. And it's a very similar thing with my mom. My mom had cancer. And when she got diagnosed a second time, I was about to open my functional medicine practice. We decided to take care of her all naturally. And it was really, again, it was a big mental battle, because she had doctors telling her she only had a 40% chance to live. She was likely going to die, and that her only option was chemotherapy. And we decided to take a natural approach to fighting cancer. And that was almost 20 years ago. My mom's I guess more like 16 years ago. But now my mom is in her 70s, in the best shape of her life, and beat cancer naturally. My whole point there is that whether it was my patients I cared for, my own family members, or myself, I really found that the mind is really our most important tool for healing. I'll give you an example of this. If we go all the way back to World War I, this is how the placebo effect was born. There was a practicing physician who was taking care of all of the fallen soldiers. Many of the soldiers had lost limbs, excruciating pain, and the drug that they gave these soldiers was morphine. Now, I think everybody here knows that morphine is an incredibly strong drug that typically completely eliminates pain. Well, because of so many soldiers were injured, they ran out of morphine. And so this doctor had to come up with something to help, and so he just gave them sugar pills. And the crazy part of this, Jeremy, was 30 to 40% of the soldiers that had lost limbs, excruciating pain, had the exact same pain relief as if they had taken morphine. And so that just shows the power of the mind. I mean, I tell this with my patients, if you have everything from hypothyroidism to autoimmune disease to you name the condition, the most important part of you healing, now I believe changing your diet's important. I think following doctor's directions can be important, but really the most important part is believing and knowing you will heal. If we go back and think about Jesus, Jesus didn't say this supplement or this medication or this food will heal you. He said it's by your faith or your beliefs. What do you believe? You know, think about Proverbs, like as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Are you healed or not healed? What do you believe? What are you thinking there? And so really biblically speaking, it's when we talk about healing, it is the essential thing in terms of our faith, our beliefs, our thoughts impact our body greatly. Today in medicine, we call it the mind-body connection. Now, I want to give you an example of how this can work negatively. This is a real medical case study. There was a man who went in and he was diagnosed with liver cancer, and the doctors told him he had about 3 months to live. The man died 3.5 months later. When they went in and did the autopsy, there was no cancer. There was a small benign tumor that could have simply been removed. He could have lived another 30 to 40 years. So why did that man die when he had 30, 40 years left? Because he believed he was going to. And by the way, that's just one case study. There are thousands and thousands of other case studies where people believed they were sick. And by the way, I see this all the time with doctors where they create limiting beliefs in people. And I want to share kind of how this happened for me personally, where I developed a limiting belief. But just to go back to this is why this book, why these ideas, why the Bible sharing this is so important, is that if you want to be healthy, you have to have the right thoughts and mindset. And when I was a freshman in high school, I was not a very good student. And I went in and I had a teacher, she asked me to stay after class. This was an English class, and her name was Miss Noble. And she said, Josh, what do you want to do after high school? And I said, I want to be a doctor. And the reason was my mom was diagnosed with cancer twice. I shared the first one, but the second one. But the first time I was in junior high and my mom had breast cancer. And my mom went through all the conventional treatments, had a mastectomy, chemotherapy. And I remember my mom suffering, Jeremy, and I thought to myself, I want to help people like my mom. So when the teacher asked me that, I said, I want to be a doctor. Well, here's the thing. She laughed out loud and she said, Josh, listen, you can never be a doctor with your GPA. She said, my own daughter has a 3.8 GPA and she barely got into med school. She said, with your GPA, you'll be lucky to graduate high school. You need to try harder.
Wow.
And I walked out of there. And then 2 weeks later, so I walked out of there thinking, well, maybe I can't be a doctor. I was 14 years old. I didn't know that, that much better. And then 2 weeks later, my mom brings me to see a physician who then talks about me like I'm not in the room. And she says, they said, your son has a severe learning disability. He has ADHD. He's always going to have trouble learning. I'm going to give you a prescription for a drug called Ritalin. And, and this might be able to help him some. Now I walked out of there thinking, well, gosh, not only can't be a doctor, I'm not smart, or I'm not only not smart, I'm like medically not smart. I've got a learning disability. And so in high school, I really stopped trying. I barely graduated high school. Reason was I knew my dad would be just so mad if I didn't. And so I graduated with a C- GPA, but I wanted to go to college, but I applied, got denied by most of the colleges I wanted to go to. However, one college sent me a letter back, and they said, basically, you're not in, but if you come to summer school and you average above a 3.0, we'll let you in. And so I said, okay, I'm really going to try. So I wrote it. The first class I had to take, by the way, was English 101. First big assignment was a paper. So I went, I wrote it, I turned it in, and this was like deja vu. A few days later, the teacher said, Josh, can you stay after class for a minute? And my stomach dropped. I thought, oh no, I probably failed again. And she goes, Josh, what's your major? And I said, I haven't chosen one yet. And she said, well, I want to let you know, I think you should really consider being an English major or journalism major. She said, because I think you're a wonderful writer. She said, you got the highest grade in the class. You're really gifted at this. One great job. And I walked out of there thinking, wow, I can do this. I averaged well above a 3.0 throughout college, changed my major to pre-med, eventually became a doctor. I graduated Johns Hopkins University with a 3.9 GPA. And I don't share any of that to brag. I share it to say, here's the reality. If I would have held on to that one single limiting belief about myself that I wasn't smart, like I would have never become a doctor. I wouldn't have written this book. None of these things would have happened. And there are so many people today living with limiting beliefs about themselves, about others, about God, and it's completely limiting them in life. Like I had so many patients come in constantly where their doctor would tell them, listen, this condition you have, it's irreversible, and you have to be on this drug the rest of your life. And the reality was, once they came in, we were able to reverse disease and get them off the medications. And so that just wasn't true. But I share that story to say it's so important that people identify what are their biggest limiting beliefs in life, and then break through those if they're going to reach their optimal who God called them to be.
Mm-hmm. And you do a great job. I think the book's got those sections where you encourage people they need to go back through and kind of find the sources of where those limiting beliefs came from, whether it's something from the world, or in your case, maybe unthoughtful words that somebody said that formed a belief in you. There are a lot of places, but the first step is, identifying where those are at so we can start to write new beliefs that will help kind of set our path straight to begin to understand those things. You talked too about going in and really being a guide for others and sharing beliefs, sharing statements, sharing life in ways that helps people form the right kind of beliefs about themselves.
Well, exactly. And I also want to mention I called the book is called Think This, Not That. And people could find it at bookstores nationwide. You can go to Amazon and search Josh Axe, Think This, and the book will come up. And it really is created as a guide for people to create those breakthroughs. And the reason why, I mean, if I realized after that experience with those teachers, where one teacher spoke in a way death or something negative about me, and another one really spoke life. And I think about how that completely changed the trajectory of my life. So now I'm very conscious and teach people in the book how to really do that applicably to your kids, to your friends, to your parents, to the people at work, and really call out, the life and greatness in them, in that way.
That's awesome. And I think so important. You talk as well about kind of redefining what we think of as success, not just becoming, but accomplishing it. That was a moving chapter. There was a lot of really good, insightful things said. Can you unpack some of that for us?
Yeah. So, I had a moment, this was about 7 years ago, and I was at my grandfather's funeral, and I had just published my first book, and I was, pursuing, accomplishing, achieving a lot of things in life. And I was at the funeral, and there was this moment where they don't always do these at funerals, but the pastor did it at this one. By the way, my grandfather was amazing. My grandfather's name was Howard. He was a World War II veteran in the Navy, and just had a servant's heart, gave his life for other people constantly. And another unique story about him, he worked on, after World War II, he worked on for a telephone company fixing power lines. And when he got to be in his mid-40s, he said, you know what, this just isn't what I want to do with the rest of my life. So him and my grandmother took their life savings, bought some property with a lake on it, and built out a campground and a swim park and a place where there could be family reunions and Christian retreats, and did that for the rest of his life up until he did it another 52 years because he worked until he was 96 years old. So I was at the funeral, and the pastor says, does anyone have any final words about Howard? And the man next to me, and there's 100+ people there, the man next to me blurts out, just in tears, sobbing, Howard was my best friend. And I'm a little embarrassed to say this. I looked over at him and I thought, rather than with compassion, I thought, I don't know if you're my grandfather's best friend, because that's my Uncle Alan and Don, and I don't, but then I stopped myself and I realized, I said, you know what? I'm certain my grandfather was his best friend. Probably half the people there believe my grandfather was their best friend, because he was. And then after he said that, somebody said, Howard saved my marriage. Howard led me to the Lord. So many people said Howard led me to the Lord. And I was so touched, and I really thought about it afterward, during and then after the funeral. And I really had time to meditate on and realize that the most important thing in life is not what we accomplish. It's who we become. Nobody was talking about my grandfather's accomplishments. He had never been on Forbes magazine or had a big following or any of those things, but he had touched the lives of so many people because he was generous and wise and loving and had a servant's heart. He was sacrificial. And I remember growing up, my grandfather would go to the hospital, he'd volunteer at church and go and pray for people, bring them their favorite meal. I mean, that's the sort of person he was. And he would always put his hand on people's shoulder. If you imagine a 90-year-old doing this, and say, how can I pray for you, son? And pray for you right there, look you in the eyes. And so I started reframing my mindset about what success was, because really right before that, I used to be a big Lance Armstrong fan because I was a triathlete and a cyclist. And then my mom beat cancer, and he was raising all this money for cancer. And I thought, well, he's the epitome of such a great person. But then I ended up reading his book and seeing an interview where he said, my mentality is win at all costs. And later you saw it cost him his family, it cost him his reputation, his endorsements, all of those things. And I realized that it's because he had an accomplishing mindset. So really it's so important that we focus on in life who we become. And this is biblical. God doesn't say, or Jesus doesn't say, you need to accomplish what I accomplished necessarily. He says, become like Christ. That's what Christian means, is little Christ, becoming like Christ and having that sort of mindset.
That's fantastic. And there was some moving stuff because you do realize that we culturally are so prone to look at our life as our big checklist of what are we accomplishing, and am I busy enough? Am I hustling enough? And you maybe miss those moments that are impactful, whether it's with your own family or like your grandfather in the lives of other people. You miss your opportunity to achieve those big things that God has for us, because we do a lot of times get in this mindset of what am I accomplishing on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. I encourage people not only to have a to-do list, but have a to become list, a becoming list of,
that's great.
Hey, I'm going to be generous today. I'm going to be loving. And so that's really the mindset there.
That's awesome. And I think, again, there's so many good points in this book we will not be able to get to. So that's why it's important to get the book. Once again, it is called Think This, Not That. It is available in bookstores, anywhere you get books. Like I said, I would encourage anybody to read it. Let's talk a little bit about your discussion about positive perseverance, and there's some personal connections with that principle as well for you. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, as I mentioned as we opened, just over a year and a half ago, I was sitting down with a doctor. I had injured my back lifting weights, and I'd herniated a disc in my back. And there's a treatment called stem cell, which is completely natural. They take your own cells, re-inject it in the area. Well, something went wrong when I got the treatment done, and I found out I woke up one morning 3 months later. Now, this was after it got worse and worse and worse. So I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what. And finally, 3 months later, I woke up and I couldn't walk. And I had so much pain, it was excruciating. Had to have an ambulance come pick me up. I went and got an MRI. They found out I had an infection that went from my disc, it was in my bone, and then now by my spinal cord.
Oh, wow.
I was in Puerto Rico at the time. I had to be flown to Florida on a medical jet, and sat down with a doctor, or I didn't sit down, I was laying down. And he said, Josh, listen, best case scenario is you're going to have chronic pain the rest of your life. Worst case scenario, this is life threatening, it could kill you, or there's a really good chance you're going to be permanently disabled. And Jeremy, this is so hard for me because I'm physically active. I was just throwing my 2-year-old daughter in the pool, earlier, and had no major issues outside of a little bit of back pain. And so, for 48 hours, I just felt terrible. There were emotions I never experienced before. I had never truly felt hopelessness or despair. And finally, after a couple of days, I cried out to God, and I feel like God just said, fix your eyes on me. And I realized that I'd been focusing on what the doctor had said. I'd been focused on researching online, which was the news was just as bad in terms of my prognosis. And so I said, I'm just going to fix my eyes on God, control what I can control, and do everything I can to heal. And so I went through the process of doing everything I can, like getting in a hyperbaric chamber. I had to get on antibiotics I was supposed to be on for 3 months. I was able to, because of the natural things I did, only do it for 4 weeks. But I did that, ate perfectly, just did everything I could. And then finally, I got a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, but I didn't walk for 10 months. And then I was on a walker for 2 months. And so I didn't walk on my own for an entire year. And this was the entire year of writing this book. And then now, it actually 1 year ago, I started walking again around this time. And so this was May. I started walking on my own. And so it's been a year since then. And I'm already better than the best the doctor said I would be. I'm back holding my daughter. I'm back lifting weights. I'm swimming. I'm cycling. I'm doing all those things. And so it's just important that people know, like, your beliefs help heal you. If even something like, again, hypothyroidism, if you believe you're going to heal and you praise God for it, know it's going to happen, and you can see it, you're more likely to heal than if you think, well, I've got to live with this the rest of my life. The science proves it. The Bible proves it. And so our beliefs are critically important for healing and for really success in anything in life.
Wow, that's an amazing testimony, and I think it's such a good, powerful demonstration of this principle. All of the things that you're talking about in the book, seeing that you've lived it as well. One more thing I want to touch on is you have a mind shift where you talk about finding your why, or risk wasting it all. Can you talk to us a little bit about that one? I thought that was a powerful mind shift as well.
Yeah, well, what really led me to this was I started looking at the data of the fastest growing medical conditions today. And when I first got into practice, it was cancer, it was type 2 diabetes, it was childhood obesity. Those were the biggest issues. Well, today, over the past 7 years, by far the fastest growing medical conditions is mental health disorders, depression, anxiety, loneliness, mental identity issues, and they've just exploded like we've never seen before. And there was another stat that came up that said only 25% of people know what their purpose is and what their why is in life. That's pretty low. Only 25% of people, and that includes even a lot of Christians. And so I think that, and this data also shows this: if people don't have a why and purpose, they die early. Like, for instance, when somebody retires, if they don't have a why or a purpose after retirement of work, they die other than those that do. And so this data is really important for people to understand. And so I really go through in the book, here's how to find your why, your purpose, what God has called you to do. Now, I believe we all have a global purpose to love God, love people, make earth a heavenly place. But God has given you individual, unique talents. I mean, we think about the parable of the talents, right? And that the one who buried theirs, that's like wasting your talent versus taking two and multiplying it. So I think we need to be aware of a few things. Number one, what are you passionate about? Number two, what has God gifted you to do? Number three, what's a problem in the world that breaks your heart that you want to help out with? And I think if you can identify those things, you know your calling in life. And if you can go after that to honor God and to love people and to make earth a heavenly place, you're fulfilling your purpose in life.
That's fantastic. And I think it's such an important message in counter to everything the world is telling us on any given day. The messages, those limiting messages that we're hearing from all of the different sources, be it social media, be it the peers around us, be it those people in our lives that maybe don't know about speaking unlimiting beliefs, helping people reframe things. So such a powerful message. One more time, the book is called Think This, Not That, 12 Mind Shifts to Break Through Limiting Beliefs and Become Who You Were Born to Be. Then available everywhere, any place that they can go to find out more of things that you have going on, Dr. Axe.
Yeah, I would say, well, again, one is the book. By the way, if people go get the book on Amazon, you'll get a 6-digit code afterwards. And if you get that, you can go to my website, joshaxe.com, and I'll give you $500 worth of free bonuses. We're doing it for this next month. And if you get it, Yeah, you'll get a video series from me, the workbook, all of that for free. And the other place is my show. It's called the Dr. Josh Axe Show. And I cover a lot of health topics, a lot of spiritual topics and growth topics. And people could just search on iTunes or YouTube, Josh Axe, and maybe look up anything you're struggling with. It could be Josh Axe pain or hypothyroid or autoimmune disease or spiritual growth. And these are things that I've all covered on my show as well. And then my handle on socials at Dr. Josh Axe. But Jeremy, thanks so much for having me today.
Absolutely.
I love the show. I love the message you guys are all that you're sharing to bring the kingdom to the world. So just again, it was such an honor to be on today.
Thank you so much again for your time. Once again, the book, please check it out. Take a look. It has got a powerful message that I think is so important for this day and age. I want to remind you again, Romans 12:2 tells us, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. So focus on him, spend time with him every single day, and begin to look outward. How can you bless other people in the world? So thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you next time on Life Today Live.
Sing instead of somewhere committed to an institution is an act of mercy on God's part. The same for you, the same for every man, whether they believe it or not.